let's talk about The Walking Dead. Obviously, only 3 episodes have hit so far. I'm going to spoil a little bit. I think it's probably too late to it's the big reveal of the first episode of season 7 has been revealed and it's out there, right? So if you haven't seen the show, if you're behind, I'm going to talk about it a little bit, so you may want to plug your ears. But The Walking Dead season 7 starts off with a bang, a literal one. It is disturbing as hell. Negan, who we got to kind of get to know a little bit at the end of the last season, has to show off what his bat Lucille is capable of. We get to see that in full effect, and a couple of really cool characters from the show are no more, and the way that they are dispatched is horrifying. And I honestly have had just these flashbacks of thinking of poor Glenn and Big Red. I forget that character's name right now, but watching those two characters just get obliterated in such a horrific way has been shocking as hell. And that show the first episode really played it out and stretched it out. And Rick was just, this going through a psychotic break. He was really just, and Andrew Lincoln, man, what an actor. The guy just has to go through hell and is basically doesn't have a line almost throughout the whole show. And you just have to see how he feels about this horror show just from the effects of what's on his face, just from the emotional kind of resonance that he's got to perform. And he's amazing in that first episode. It was just so grotesque and over the top. And, I guess it's honoring the comic book, which definitely, the comic series definitely goes dark. And there's some horrifying imagery that gets penned and inked in that comic. And the show, I think, has always done a very good job at painting those panels and making us, sort of get into that world. And I think episode 1 of season 7 does do that. But it's so effective, it makes you sick to your stomach. And it was really hard to just shake it off for me. I don't know how you guys felt. But it was really hard to get into it. It just felt like torture porn. And it was, obviously we've seen a lot of zombies get blown up in different ways and destroyed in lots of gross ways along the way. But the way that they especially handled Glenn, who turns and says, "I will find you," just before he gets just bludgeoned, is just... it's shaken me to the core, and I honestly looked at the second episode kind of like, oh my God, what are they going to do now, but the second episode took this weird left turn and introduced us to this character that wants to be that is a king and has a tiger, and is played by Kari Payton, who's a great voice actor. Actually, he's in tons of stuff. We interviewed him for Metal Gear Solid 4. And, we've kind of followed different characters down a different path, and we get to see a little bit of life outside of the Negan compound. And I guess that was a nice kind of breath of fresh air, but it felt like such a weird left turn after the intensity of the first episode. It felt incongruous. It felt... It felt like it kind of didn't make any sense to go into this direction. But I guess, this is a show that has always given us a couple of different, or 3 or 4 different storylines and plot lines and diverse kind of areas and diverse kinds of relationships to kind of keep track of all at the same time. The second episode was good in the way that it didn't leave me with feeling like I had been shocked out of my mind. It didn't freak me out. But the third episode, I think, goes back to more of the psychological kind of nightmare that is happening with these characters. We've got Daryl locked up in solitary confinement, music blasting at him, trying to torture him, trying to break this character down so that he becomes a disciple of Negan. And we get to see some great quiet performances, and another quiet storm brewing in Daryl. He doesn't really react all the way through. He doesn't have to speak all the way through. He's just kind of taking it all in and taking all of this abuse. And his last kind of statement of refusing to buckle is very powerful. You know, it's a very, very solid thing, particularly because we have now seen so much grotesque abuse at the hands of Negan, and we're starting to get to know that this guy is capable of anything. But we're also seeing the cracks in the world that Negan has created, and not everybody believes what this guy has got to say, and that, you know, Daryl, and I guess pretty soon the rest of his team, if Daryl survives, I mean, that's one of the things, right? We don't know who's going to live throughout this season. It does feel like there's great jeopardy, and that's a wonderful thing to have in series television, right? When you have an episodic thing that kind of strings from season to season, and when you feel that great jeopardy and that sense of fear that some of your favorite characters might just disappear at any moment, that's impressive as hell. And that's one of the greatest things I could say about The Walking Dead, is that season to season, and yes, there have been down seasons and sort of boring episodes, but the one common through line about this show is that you never know when one of your favorite actors is going to have their last paycheck and not be on the show anymore. But, you know, if you're going to predict into the future, we're going to see that there will be a little bit of a reunion of sorts of the leftover cast members, the leftover leads, and they will start to kind of figure out how to break down, hopefully, or it's going to become an incredibly morose and brutal show to watch through the rest of the season. We're going to see them kind of break down Negan's defenses and take him out. And my guess is that Lucille will be taking out Negan at some point down the road. But yeah, Walking Dead season 7. I've been sick to my stomach. I've been having After Effects shock, visions when I've closed my eyes based on the show. Wasn't really prepared for that, but it's hard to refute that this is a show that compels me to want to watch more. I'm definitely sticking with it. I'm going to give the first 3 episodes of The Walking Dead an 8 out of 10.
Hey, thanks for checking out that video on our EPN channel. It's just one small part of the things that we make around here. So if you liked it, don't forget to check out some of our other vids and hit that subscribe button.